being your own boss is incredible. Seeing that you can really set an agenda of how do I want to work, who do I want to work with, what's the values that I want to see. And it's a journey of discovering your own leadership and understanding what impact do you want to have on the world.
FemGems is all about empowering you to turn your passion into your full-time activity. And we're doing this by focusing on three things. First, real talks. We drop our game faces and we talk candidly and openly and transparently about the ups and downs, about what the founder's journey is really like, and the truth. The second thing is key insights. So we provide you with actionable, tangible, first-hand advice from rising female entrepreneurs from all over the world. And the third thing is entrepreneurial mindsets. So we dive deep into the process of growing and becoming your own boss. And FemGems is my passion and it's my labor of love. That's why I'm very excited now to join forces with Factory Berlin and to spread the inspiration of the FemGems even further. So without further ado, now let me introduce you to the first guest this year. Please welcome to the stage Anne Kjær Bathel, co-founder and CEO of Ready School for Digital Integration. Let's start off with you telling us, how did you first get in touch with entrepreneurship?
So believe it or not, I never wanted to become an entrepreneur. It just happened. The reason why it happened is I come from Denmark and Norway. So I'm a mixture, but I'm definitely a product of the Scandinavian school system, which is very much project-oriented. So I think my first project was when I was 12. The school gave us 1 week off and said, go ahead, ask a good question, go out, research it, build a product, and present it on Friday. That's how I started. Over time, I guess the projects got bigger and bigger. I had a lot of fun doing them. I really didn't have this idea that I was becoming an entrepreneur. I was just doing what made sense and what I had fun doing, and more people were joining. And eventually, I did found a company or a non-profit 4 years ago.
So there was no moment where you decided that entrepreneurship is the path that you want to go?
Honestly, not. I think looking back now, everything that I have been doing has always been entrepreneurial. So starting new things, starting projects, coming up with new ideas, being incredibly passionate about building something that doesn't exist. But it never occurred to me, and maybe it's also a product of the time and where I was living, that we didn't talk so much about entrepreneurship. I studied at the Chaos Pilots in Denmark, and I studied, actually part of it is entrepreneurship, but it never really dawned on me. I studied innovation. I thought innovation was my path. It is my path. I guess eventually I realized that there's more freedom when you're your own boss than necessarily working as a consultant or working inside a large corporation where there are other people's rules. Of course, there are rules that I have to play with as well, but very happy that I made the decision in the end to found my own.
And you've never gotten a job through applying for it? Can you elaborate on this a little bit?
Well, you can also deduct that maybe my application is just crap. No. Honestly, I have applied, I think like everyone else, but I think when you're applying for jobs in the newspaper or things that are advertised, you're applying with hundreds of other people, and the chances of you being successful and being on top of the pile is relatively slim. And every job that I have ever gotten has either been on my own initiative, where I have suggested a new role inside of a company, I've suggested a project. Everything that I have been successful with in applying for a job has been through my network.
Can you share one advice on how you build a network?
The key to any good network is always to be of service. As a personality, I'm incredibly curious. So I love asking people questions and getting to know people. And when you get to know people and you're starting to realize what they're doing and they're passionate about, and you start realizing, oh, how can I be of service? How can I add value somehow? And I think that's a good starting point for a relationship, of not coming wanting to take, but rather to have a giving mindset. And if you can come to a situation where you're creating a win-win, that's the best possible solution for a long-term sustainable relationship, friendship, anything. But being a good listener is probably the best way to start a good network.
Can you walk us through the process of shaping the idea for Ready School, how it looked like in the very beginning to what it is today?
So Ready School was a product out of the Berlin Peace Innovation Lab that I started in 2012 together with Stanford University. So I arrived in Berlin in 2012 after graduating with a master's degree from Japan. I came to Berlin and wanted to work in social innovation, but soon realized that at least at that time there wasn't that much knowledge about social innovation, social entrepreneurship. So the question was, maybe I go somewhere else. Or if there is no network, let's start a network. I was already in contact with Stanford Peace Innovation Lab, and I'm incredibly honored that I got basically a wild card from them to say, okay, you want to be in Berlin, why don't you start a peace lab here? So I started with Meetup, getting a community of people passionate about technology and innovation together. That grew into a community of about 1,800 people over 3 years. So in the middle of the refugee crisis in 2015, we very soon realized, let's do something. We therefore got the Peace Lab together. We met at Berlin Town Hall, about 40 stakeholders, people who were interested. And we started, as we always do, doing brainstorming, sharing insights with each other. And after 2 hours, we had so many Post-it notes and so many ideas, but quite honestly, the biggest insight was that we looked around the room and we thought, who are we to think that we know what the refugees need? There's no refugees in the room. So even though I have a background in innovation and user-centered innovation, I didn't have the network at the time. So I hadn't been able to invite anyone with a migrant or a refugee background, and it was clearly a mistake. But that's why you need to start somewhere. So after realizing we need to start reaching out to the people who really know what they need, we started going out into refugee camps. In about August 2015, I was invited to the end of Ramadan, and I was in Buch in north of Berlin, and I was sitting next to a young man, and people were dancing and we were having lunch and it was lovely. And Mohammed, who was sitting next to me, I was curious as always. So I was asking him, so who are you? What do you want to do with your life? What's your dreams? And he was explaining that he had a bachelor degree in computer science from the university in Baghdad, and that he really wanted to become a programmer in Berlin, but that he didn't have a laptop. Because naturally you don't flee to Germany with a laptop under your arm. It would be dangerous. It'll be stolen, get lost, get broken on the way. So I thought, well, I have 2 laptops at home. They're old Macs. They still work, but they're a little bit slow. But at least a laptop is better than no laptop. But then the next thought, okay, giving a programmer a laptop is a little bit like giving a hungry man a fish. Maybe we look at it a little bit more systematically and say, okay, you don't give a hungry man a fish, you teach him how to fish. With a programmer, you need to stay up to date with the newest technologies. You need to have the right network to work. You need to have the right soft skills to succeed in the industry in Germany. So that evening, I was talking to a friend of mine, Westin Hankins, who said, well, I'd like to teach Mohammed to code. And that's where the idea of Ready School kind of really started. That evening I went home and wrote on my Facebook wall, if I start a tech school for refugees, can you help? Then I went to bed, and the next morning I had about 30 people who were reaching out and saying, I have a laptop, I can teach, I have a classroom that you can use, I have absolutely no idea about coding, but I can bake cakes. And food is a wonderful thing to bring people together. So that was really the first spark of Ready School, was to say, wow, there's obviously people who really want to help. Then I reached back out to Mohammed and said, Mohammed, I have people who really want to help. Why don't you bring a couple of friends next time? We bring all of these wonderful people together and we start building. So I think next time we were 6 people, and then we asked everyone at the end of it if it made sense for them, then they should come back next time and everyone should bring a friend. And that's basically how we have had exponential growth since then. And I think it's been absolutely vital for the success of Ready School that everything has been co-created with the refugee community. Without that, I think we would have massively failed, because I could see in the beginning of the refugee crisis that there was a lot of people who really, really wanted to help, but who were building ideas that were not necessarily useful or helpful to the refugees who were arriving, and therefore they didn't have enough traction early on. So for us, it still remains a mantra to stop talk about refugees and to start talking with refugees. And I think that should be essential in any organization, that we always need to stay close to our users or customers.
How were you able to get the first partners on board? So if you're a founder with a social impact focus, what advice would you give to them on getting partners?
So the first partner we got was Klöckner & Co., a steel company from Duisburg. We got the contact through one of the first people in the team who had previously worked with them. And quite honestly, in her last email from her former company, she wrote, "I'm now switching to Ready School. Ready School is doing this, this, and this. If you want to keep in contact, send me an email." And Klöckner thought, this sounds amazing. They reached out to Özlem, my former colleague, and she was able to bring in the first true partner. They were really the reason that we could turn Ready School into a social enterprise. The first 6 months we were doing the project all voluntarily, and like most other volunteer projects, you kind of run out of steam after 3 months, because you also need to earn money. You need to pay your rent, and I was working at the time as a consultant here in Berlin. But it was clear that it's unsustainable to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I needed to do something, and teamed up with Ferdi van Herden, my co-founder, and then we were able to get the first partners involved. We're super lucky that a couple of weeks after we officially founded the organization, we had Mark Zuckerberg come and visit the school. So I guess what better start to a startup? It was a bit surreal, and Facebook has been a partner for the last 4 years.
How did this come to be?
Again, it's all partners and network. I've known Facebook from the time that there were just 2 people sitting in an office in Berlin. I followed what they're doing. They have followed my work. Always keeping contact with the people that you know that are doing exciting things, that are expanding, and keep delivering quality work is incredibly important. So I think it was sort of a combination that Mark and Priscilla, his wife, were in Berlin anyway. It's not like they came for Ready School. They came here to do a big presentation at Berlin Town Hall. But it was in the middle of the refugee crisis, and they are personally interested in technology and how technology can be applied to make the world a better place. It was pretty clear when we met both of them that this is something that is actually at heart. It's not just something that they're doing strategically. But yeah, they're actually really nice people, but it's extremely absurd all of a sudden to open the door and there's Mark in a gray t-shirt.
Your advice on getting partners?
Again, I think it's the same as with how to build a good network. It is to be of service. So always come up with a value proposition to the partners that is clearly showing how you can be of benefit to them, because then you can have a more interesting conversation. So I'm always trying with our corporate partners to understand what is the challenge that they are looking into. So Ready School, we are educating developers, and in Germany right now there's 124,000 available jobs in the IT industry. Bitkom said last year that German companies are losing about 5 billion euros every year. And so many companies can spend up to 10 or 20,000 euros on getting developers to join the team, and then they spend a lot of money on keeping them in the team. So why not invest early on to really build a talent pool and a pipeline? You can do that through recruiters, but you can also do it and give back to the community through Ready School. And that is mostly the proposition that I come with, because then we can, from the beginning, start actually talking about, well, what are you spending anyway on recruiting? Could this be used in another way? How can we build a relationship from that? Because at the end of the day, we are a social startup, but we need to be able to expand as well. And if the partners come to us and think that they can get everything for free because it's charity, then there's no point in having a second conversation. We need to be able to expand and deliver quality work, and therefore you also need to be able to talk about money relatively early on. When people can see that there is a real benefit to them, then they also invite you for the second conversation.
First, think about what the partner needs, and second, start talking about money. What's really interesting, I visited Ready School last week, and Anne told me that they now have 60% women, which was not like this in the beginning. There were 10% in the beginning, right? So how did you make this huge jump?
First of all, it started with absolutely not accepting that 10% women is enough. If we look at female founders, if we look at women in tech, in Germany, it's about 16% for both. And that is clearly not what the world looks like. We are about 50% women on this planet. It was pretty natural for me to just think, well, then 50% of our students should be women. And there's a pretty big jump from 10% to 50%. So the question was, how do we manage? We literally started up by one of our shareholders is Joanna Breitenbach, who's one of the founders of Better Place. And we had dinner at her place, and we invited a lot of women in tech and a lot of women with migration background. And we started developing who are actually the target audience that we want to talk to, because just saying we want to work with women with migration background is pretty broad, because that's all the way from a woman from Iran with a PhD to woman from Afghanistan who might only have been 7 years to school. The path and what they need is going to be very, very different. So we started probably developing about 15 different prototypes of the women that we wanted to work with. Then together with Facebook on International Women's Day, we invited a lot more people to join the conversation, and we started prototyping what the courses may look like for these 15 women characters that we had developed. That then became 2 pilot projects where we were testing out our idea relatively successfully, and then Coca-Cola Foundation actually reached out to us and said, we really want to support women. We've heard about what you're doing with your female courses, and then Coca-Cola Foundation stepped in for 3 years to support the project. So that has been an incredible journey. It keeps developing all the time. We now have about 100 women in our women program. Here in Berlin, we have a women program in Copenhagen and in Munich too, and that now leaves us at 60% women. Actually, I think the upcoming semester we're getting close to 70% women. Interesting for me has been to see, because we have a for women by women course, that has actually meant that a lot more women are applying for our normal, regular digital career program. So in the Java and Python courses that we have, we are at 37% women at the moment. So I think there's a lot to be learned from that. We're planning to expand to Nordrhein-Westfalen this year, and the partner that we're probably going to do it with said, oh, can you also get to 50% women immediately? And I said that can only happen if I'm also allowed to develop a female program, because it doesn't come by itself. And I'm pretty sure that if we just started an ordinary tech school in NRV, then we would also start by 10% women. It's something that needs to happen in parallel. I think keeping in mind and having audacious goals for how many women we want in tech is definitely necessary. But at the end of the day, it is hard work, and we need to keep working at it.
What is it that you have done that has worked to attract more women to your program?
I think having the courage to acknowledge that we have a problem, then saying we need to significantly change the way that we do our program. Because in the beginning, we're just changing the marketing of what we're doing. So having more women in the pictures. We were testing the titles of our courses with women to make sure that it sounded more attractive. And definitely it helped. We went from 10% to 20%, but 20% is not 50. So we needed to do more. And this is how we developed the women program. And of course, I would like women and men to be together, but we've also seen that at the university here in Berlin, they've started a tech course only for women. The students that I've met, they're incredibly happy with it because they feel that they can ask any question that they might have. Whereas they said previously when they've studied with guys, they've held back because they felt that their questions were possibly ridiculous. Somehow they didn't feel comfortable in that situation. And they said that they feel that they can develop faster in an all-female group. It's not a situation that I think anyone would wish for. I think we have to work towards diversity. But until we get to that point, I think we also have to be extremely pragmatic and say, okay, let's build the programs that is needed. And then in the future, hopefully we'll get to 50% and it's not needed anymore to have all women programs. But I think the situation right now is so serious that we need to test anything that might work.
How do you manage your time and how do you set priorities?
I think when I was younger, I had this idea of work-life balance and keeping things very separate. Right now, I guess I've come to realize that I have one life. I need to manage my energy. And when I'm working, I should get energy. When I'm not working, I should also get energy. So it's more managing that energy flow, and I'm getting better at it. Very much thanks to my team, I would say. It should not be underestimated how hard it is to found a company, no matter if you're male or female. It's hard, and it's hard work. We've been lucky that it's working. It also means that my working hours have gone down from, 12, 15 hours in the beginning to getting closer to 10. So that's manageable. I've recently gotten a COO, Mireia, who's absolutely, truly wonderful and makes my life so much easier and much more balanced. We have a very agile team who can make decisions as well, so it's distributing responsibility into the team. For me, it's also been important that I have a therapist outside, because it's been good to have somebody who can really put things into perspective, make me reflect on the work that I'm doing, and also having the safety, because it is hard to be a social entrepreneur. The stories that I get to hear from our participants, the structural violence, as I would call it, that you see that is happening right now with the refugee crisis, is something that is extremely upsetting. And it's been good for me to have somebody on the outside to make sure that I stay as balanced and focused as I can. But it's a learning process. It's getting better, but I think anyone who knows me would say I should take more time off.
How has your life changed since you became an entrepreneur?
I think being an entrepreneur is the best thing and the worst thing you can do to yourself. The worst because it's hard work and it requires incredible focus and energy. It can be extremely hard for any relationship that you are in, but it's the best thing I've ever done as well. Looking back, I'm extremely happy that I did it, but had I known what I had to go through, I would never have started. But it's good to sit here and see where we are at. Being your own boss is incredible. Seeing that you can really set an agenda of how do I want to work, who do I want to work with, what's the values that I want to see. We have one of our colleagues now is just about to give birth, and just sitting down with her and saying, okay, how are we going to talk about maternity leave? What do you need? How do we create a good atmosphere that you feel taken care of the 6 months before you have to give birth? And also when you return to work, how do we design this in the most meaningful way? I think that's absolutely amazing to be able to be in that position as a female founder, to say, I want to see happy mothers coming back to work. How do we build this together? And actually having the possibility to do it. And it's a journey of discovering your own leadership and understanding what impact do you want to have on the world. So I can only recommend it, but know what you're getting into.
So final question is the signature question of the podcast. How would you personally encourage females to pursue entrepreneurship?
One of the best advices I ever got was from a Stanford professor, and he basically said, stop trying, start doing. And what he meant by that is, I think, especially women have the tendency to say, I am trying to do this. So you might say, oh, I'm trying to do a podcast. And in the beginning, I might have said, I'm trying to build a tech school for refugees. But the shift of mind that comes from saying, I am doing a podcast or I'm doing a tech school is incredible, because when you're talking to people, it's a completely different conversation. If somebody comes up and said, Anna, what are you doing? Well, I'm trying to build a tech school there. Oh, well, good luck. Or if I say, I'm running a tech school, they will say, oh, interesting. What are you teaching? How do you apply? Who are your students? So the questions that comes from that is very, very different. I mean, some people say, fake it until you make it. I don't necessarily believe in that. When you're actually working on building something, you are building that. You're not trying to build it, because then you can come up with all kinds of excuses of why it's not working. So I think a little bit more courage in saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And also when you get up in the morning, what am I doing? I'm building a tech school. Even if it's just putting something on Facebook and saying, I'm building a tech school, who can help? Sometimes small actions can lead to big results.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for a Q&A. I wanted to open this show for the audience first because I'm super curious what you're going to ask. I believe in interaction and exchanging ideas. Just feel free to ask anything that you have on your mind right now.
So thank you for being so candid and open. I think a lot of the things that you said really resonated with me. In particular, when you said it's really good to have a therapist outside work, which I totally agree with. So I'm a team coach, and I also am always looking to get coaching myself or therapy or whatever it will be, because I view it as extremely beneficial to keep me grounded. Yeah. And in your opinion, how much of a taboo is that?
I think there's more openness coming, but we need more people. It's also why I'm saying it, because there are a couple of articles that is talking about the psychological pressures of being in a startup. I'm lucky because I'm building a social startup, so I had to be cash flow positive from the beginning to be able to pay anyone in the team. For the startups that are with venture capital, the pressure that they are under is incredible. The decisions that they need to make are sometimes with the wrong investors, not their own. And I think that puts incredible pressure. And I wish more people would talk about it, but I think that there's also the tendency to not show vulnerability and opening up and saying, I'm not perfect and I don't have the answers to everything is a path that I have taken, because my experience has been that opening up and asking for help has been the best thing ever in order to actually get support and help from people. It's probably also the nature of being a social entrepreneur. It's a little bit different when you have venture capital backing or it's a very profit-driven organization. I think it's different. But yes, I wish for more openness, and I wish for more openness before the other startups burn out or they have to close their doors, that it doesn't come after the fact that you had to close. And I think we need more people to say that openly. But thanks for the work that you're doing. We do need more openness about it.
I have a question regarding the female programs, because I think it's amazing that you get women into the pipeline. But one problem is as well that women are dropping out during the career. And I've been a woman in tech myself, and I just wish I would have been more prepared for what I call subtle sexism in the industry, sometimes not so subtle. In your all-female courses, do you prepare women for the structures that they have to expect when they actually start working?
It's a super relevant point. The short answer is we don't. It's something that I would love to do more. The reality is that in our women courses, we mostly work with digital literacy, because we realized that most of the migrant women didn't have the skills to just do basic things in Word, Excel, Google Calendar, knowing how to send an email address. And that was keeping them both out of work, any kind of work, but also from just being a good parent. If you have kids, they're in school, there's a class intranet where you need to talk to other parents. If you need to go to the doctor, you need to book it through an email. So we decided to start at the very, very bottom. It sounds wrong, but just start with very, very fundamentals and then build up from there. So for most of the women in our women program, it's mostly about empowerment and digital upskilling, but not necessarily getting a job in the tech industry. If the women get there, it'll take maybe 5 years, I would estimate. But I think for most of them, it's also not even something that they aspire to do. We do have a few courses in UX design. I think that there are more women in UX design, so the future potentially for our participants is different. But I'm really open to your ideas and what the needs are, because I think it's something that we can definitely support around, but more likely in our digital career courses, where we are seeing more women to make sure that they have the support that is needed. I think the good thing is at Ready School, we really have a lot of female volunteers who are tech teachers, and I think from that, let's call it sisterhood, you can get a lot of support. There's a lot of trust being built amongst the women who are teaching. That's probably the best support that you can get. But it is hard, and I think it's also important that we start talking about what does it mean to be a woman in tech, because some people will say, as long as you're working in a tech company, then you're a woman in tech. I've also been called a woman in tech. I run a tech school, and I can't code, but I still run a tech school, so I have also been not misquoted, but it has been reported that I was a programmer. I really am not a programmer, and I'm actually horrible with technology, but I understand the necessity of it. So it's wrong to call me a woman in tech. So it's important that we start talking about who are we talking about when we're talking about women in tech. Where do we need more women in tech specifically, and how do we make the support systems around it?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's very inspiring. I was wondering if you could share a bit more about how you found your team, especially before and leading up to founding, and maybe how you also kept them motivated. You mentioned that I think there were about 6 months where no one got paid in the very beginning, so I imagine that must have been a challenge.
So because we started really with the Peace Innovation Lab, there was already a lot of people around. My co-founder, Ferdi van Herten, I already knew from before. He then came to me. He knew what we were developing and said, I absolutely believe in this. I want to be part of it. How can I be of support? So he came to me. Finding a co-founder can be really, really hard, and finding a good match. I knew that I didn't want to found alone, because for me, I've built a lot of projects. Taking that step and becoming a real founder, whatever that means, I really wanted to do it with somebody else, because I know I work better in teams. So when Ferdi said, I want to be part of this, it was like, yes. Because I knew that we were sharing the same values and the same mission and for where we wanted to take Ready School. Then it was really starting by reaching out to potential students and getting them to come up with ideas of how do we develop, bringing together the volunteers who were interested in teaching. So it was a lot of coordination. So in the beginning, it was building a community of people sharing the same idea of what we want to do with Ready School. Then Özlem was in between jobs, and she said, I have a few months. I can do this full time until my next gig. Then we started working together more and more full time. I was working as a consultant, and beyond the consultancy I was working with, have the most amazing founder couple, and Claudia and oh God, I'll have a good laugh with him afterwards that I can't remember his name. Oh God, it'll come back. Oh man. They're absolutely amazing, because they said to me, Daniel, sorry. Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry you want to hear this. They said, Anna, we think this is a fabulous idea. Keep doing what you kind of need to do at work, but in between you can do Ready School as much as you need, and we understand when you need to go. Without their absolutely incredible help, I also wouldn't have been sitting here today. So anything I do is always in an ecosystem of absolutely amazing people who have given me permission to build what I believe in. And that's also what I'm trying to do inside of Ready School with my team, with everyone. It is a shared project all the way along, and sometimes also letting go of people who are being part of my team because they're wanting to build something else. I'm just extremely happy, because empowered employees who go on to become entrepreneurs is amazing. So I think for me, building empowered communities and building the team from a base of shared values is the best thing that I can recommend.
What are ways individuals can support Ready School? Can you tell us more about that? I've heard that you have a volunteer teacher program. Maybe you can tell us more about this. Thank you.
So the way to volunteer at Ready School, there are many ways to do it. We have 350 volunteers working with us in Germany. If you are a techie, then you can become a teacher. It's usually once per week, 2 hours each evening. We teach between 7 and 9. You always work in teacher teams of a minimum of 5 teachers. So if you're teaching Python or Java or HTML or IoT, you'll be with other people who are passionate about that topic. We'll give you teacher training as well. So if you haven't been in front of a classroom before, you'll be taught how to do it. You can also become a mentor. The mentorship is a one-to-one mentorship, so we are trying that all of our students are getting a personal mentor. The idea is that you meet with them 1 hour per month, over 6 months, built a platform thanks to Deloitte that is doing like a matching. So if a student saying, I'm looking for a senior developer who can look through my code, that's a possibility. But sometimes our students also need help with things like, can you look through my German CV to make sure that it's good German and there's no spelling mistakes? Or some of our students need to do a phone interview in German, and they need somebody to literally call them up, and they will do a little play of what that might look like. So the matching is done, what the interests of the students are with what can the mentors give. The good thing is that we are teaming up with Ben & Jerry's in Berlin so that the mentor and the mentees can actually meet in Ben & Jerry's and have ice cream together. So that's a really, really nice benefit.
Thank you. First of all, it was really inspiring to listen to your talk. My question is more about the support that startups or tech companies can provide. So I heard you just mention that it would take maybe 5 years for, say, your women migrant students right now to kind of join the companies. So within this period or in general, is there something that startups can do to prepare or to also support in some way this sort of process? Because I know a lot of startups want to support, but a lot of times they don't know how to do it. And it comes off very, like how you said in the beginning, like this kind of way of just kind of giving it. But is there some other sort of nice way to go about this?
Certainly. So we work with about 80 different companies in Berlin and in Munich, all the way from startups to large companies like Facebook, Cisco, Google, Microsoft. The way that companies help is extremely different. So we have like Microsoft is giving us financial support. They're helping us teach our students. Cisco has created an IoT course that is taking place at Cisco, and it's taught by Cisco employees, all the way to startups who say, we want to make it possible for our employees to come and teach once per week or to do mentorship as part of the work. Because I think what most companies have realized is that by allowing your employees to volunteer at Ready School, you are tapping into a massive talent pool of other people who are both passionate about tech, but who also have leadership potential because they're choosing to spend their time on giving back and helping others. And that act in itself is already something that is empowering. The best way for companies to support is really to provide teachers, because in Berlin right now, I think we'll reach about 280 students in our Women and our Digital Career Program, plus about 100 youth and kids. So we need a lot of teachers. I can see there's a little bit more women here than men, and the Women Program really can need a lot of support. In the Women Program, it really is about basically the Microsoft Office package. So imagine you are from Afghanistan, you can barely read and write in your own language, and all of a sudden you're faced with a laptop. You need to learn what is a keyboard. You need to learn what is a mouse. When I move this thing, then the cursor is also moving. So it's really fundamental. So anyone who knows how to use a laptop can basically be a teacher in the Women Program. And just to make it clear, like we have many different women. So when I talk about it being 5 years before the women joining work, it depends what kind of work. So we can see that even women in our Digital Women Program who are just learning how to use a laptop can be employed as office managers, for instance, because they then know how to book appointments. One of our students from Eritrea called Ginnet recently started working as a dentist assistant. She's taken only 6 months of courses with us, and she's already on her way. So there's a lot of things that can be done. We have a career department whose only job it is to work with companies who are interested to hire one of our students to find the right candidate. So if you could imagine providing a paid internship or a job, even if it's a mini job or a part-time job, reach out to me or reach out just at hello@Ready School, and we'll be able to support, because giving women an opportunity to just start and get into a company can really change their life, and it can change a family as well.
Hey Anna, thank you so much. That was a really inspiring talk. I'm here with my colleague Alia, and we head up a all-female executive search. So my question to you is, how do you recommend we reach more females or team up with more female initiatives like FemGems?
I think women have this incredible talent to connect with each other. Women are also incredible communicators mostly. So I think the right thing is always to connect with things like FemGems, with other female networks, and then sharing the message. Women are also good storytellers. So the more stories that we can tell about role models, about women who have succeeded, I think the better. It's wonderful to see that there are more and more of these women networks that are supporting each other. So I think you're doing absolutely the right thing already, and I wish you all the best of luck. It's super cool what you're doing.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm just more curious about what kind of legal form did you choose? Are you non-profit or profit? Because you said you have a lot of partners, and what are the benefits actually of what you chose?
So we decided to be a GmbH, so a social enterprise. We did a lot of research in the beginning. So it was clear to us that we wanted to be a non-profit because we didn't want to financially benefit on the suffering of refugees. That for us was a given in the beginning. And I absolutely agree with people to say, well, you could also have done exactly that with a for-profit. So I don't want to get into that discussion, but we decided in the beginning we want to be a non-profit. So that more or less left us with three options: to be an EV, a GUG, or a GmbH. We were advised not to do an EV, so a Verein, because you need to be 7 people founding. When 7 people need to agree, it can take time. And that sometimes, especially in the beginning, where you need to make a lot of decisions fast, could stifle the growth of our project. So we decided against it. A GUG we decided not to do because we heard from foundations that they don't consider a GUG as serious as a GmbH. That's a shame, because I think we could see a lot more people founding a GUG, because you only need approximately about €1,000 in order to start it. We were incredibly lucky that Stefan and Joanna Breidenbach, co-founded Better Place, decided to actually personally give us the €12,500 that we needed, money that they will never see come back because we are a non-profit. But they believed so much in what we were doing and in the founder team that they said, go ahead and found it. I mean, I'm still flabbergasted, and I hope one day I can pay that back or pay it forward. But you need that $12,500 to found a GmbH, and yes, you are liable for another $12,500, and we are not making money, we are non-profit. I think it's absolutely crazy, honestly, that you almost need €25,000 to start a social enterprise that has a social purpose, but that's a different political discussion to have. I've been very happy with the discussion or with the decision, but it's a very, very hard form to work with, because on the one hand side, we are allowed to make a profit. It just needs to be reinvested into the social impact that we are doing. But it means that with every conversation that I have with organizations, we need to first understand, are you going to give us a donation, or are you going to give us is this a partnership? Because with a donation, I can't give any Gegenleistung, so no return service. So basically what you're allowed to do is to say thank you. But then the question is, in the 21st century, what does saying thank you really mean? So when I write something on social media and I say, isn't it incredible that Microsoft is giving us money? Is that marketing? Or is that a donation and just being kind and saying thank you? And of course, there's a lot of organizations that want to work with us and want to tell authentic stories. And it will be good for their brand. And it will have a good for-profit impact for them. So I'm in continuous conversation with our tax advisor and our lawyers and our partners to truly understand and to set the framework in the beginning. All the time, I'm incredibly afraid that I will get a phone call at one point from the Finanzamt, and we keep trying to do our very best, but it is incredibly unclear. Last week we sent the biggest spreadsheet you have ever seen of possibilities of, are you allowed to do this or allowed to do that? It is, I think, so long that neither our tax advisor nor our lawyer wants to start even working on it. It's extremely hard, because I absolutely believe that when you're giving a donation, yes, you're getting a tax deduction, therefore there needs to be rules. I believe in understanding it, but it's very hard to understand. Where do we draw the line? Now I'm being open at it and just letting you know it's a continuous discussion that we keep having, and I'm just hoping for the sake of me that we're doing the right thing, because the challenge is that if you do this wrong, I then will lose my Gemeinnützigkeit for Ready School, which means I need to pay back 3 years of taxes, and that will bankrupt our organization. So we are trying with absolutely everything that we can to have the right lawyers and the right tax advisors, and we keep asking the question, and we keep trying to do the right thing. But if you want to make your life easy, don't start a GmbH. If you want to learn about German tax law, start a GmbH.
Thank you so much. I just had so many realizations just hearing you talk. This was amazing.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Anne.
This episode was mixed and edited by me, Klina Linsky. I'm the new sound editor for FemGems, and I'm so excited to be involved in this series. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to share it on your socials and with a friend who might resonate with anything addressed throughout the episode. Don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and why not continue the conversation over at our growing community on LinkedIn and Instagram. Are you an early stage female founder? Then you can also apply to join the FemGems Club. Log on to femgems.club to find out more.